on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Crypto Zombie. Hope you're having a wonderful day today. Now, obviously, yesterday we made the video. We were talking about Bitcoin pushing on this very, very specific level. In fact, if I go over to my BitGet chart right here and I zoom in, you could see that we did have this fake out breakout to the top. Now, why did this happen? You can pinpoint the exact moment that the Fed minutes were released. It was right here. We had the pump and instant massive candle dump to the downside. Now, what is interesting though, and by the way, if you guys were following, make sure you have it activated so you can watch the Twitter shorts, because I did explain that in one of my short videos that came out yesterday. But you can see right here, we've actually, even though we fell all the way back down here, we've kind of climbed back up to a pretty decent level, and we have not lost this initial pump right here. So you could kind of say that maybe the markets were shook, but it was kind of a ridiculous statement really, because we already knew this. The Fed had literally, at the FOMC meeting back in December 13th and 14th, we knew that this was their stance. We knew that this is what we were expecting. So it really is irrational the way that the markets react. But in today's video, what I want to talk about specifically, and obviously there is a lot of crazy things going on. Sam Bankman-Fried, didn't plead guilty, and now he gets to play video games until League of Legends until October. We could talk about that. But there's some other things that I wanted to focus on specifically, and that's the biggest question of all moving forward is, will central banks and the US actually attempt to crush Bitcoin or not? Well, just recently, we did in fact have a statement that came out from the Fed, and it was a joint statement that was actually issued to several banks. And I think that once you hear what they had to say, this might actually shock you. I also wanted to talk about, Bitcoin ultimately as whether or not it's an opportunity or a threat to the US. There's actually this really amazing opinion piece that came out. I think it's really important that you guys stick around for this. It might help your perspective, especially if you're super down right now in this bear market. And also, let's talk about the Bitcoin, cycles compared to the overall financial cycles, right? For example, in 1971, we went off the gold standard. That was a very big cycle change, right? For the US monetary policy. Now, our dollars are no longer backed by gold. They're backed by the trust, right? Or the enforcement of the government, the state, the military, right? So lots of things to go over today, guys. And also, of course, we're going to talk about the short-term Bitcoin price action, because let me tell you guys, we are winding up, and I'm telling you, within the next week or two, this boring price action is going to get wild, volatile, and definitely is going to be the time for us to be putting in some of these bigger trades. And if you guys are interested, make sure you get subscribed. So let's dive in. Let's have a look super quick. Now, I did just want to talk about, before I get to the charts, of course, there is the possibility of an outlier, okay? Something that could still crash the price of Bitcoin. Now, something interesting, I was reading this article right here, and Larry Summers, the Harvard professor and former top financial advisor during the Obama administration, has cut ties with troubled crypto conglomerate Digital Currency Group. Now, we know that Digital Currency Group has, January 5th, so they have 3 days now to pay back Gemini, or else, I don't know, or else, right? We really don't know what's going to happen. But Summers joined Digital Currency Group as a senior advisor in 2016, and he recently has left. Now, why has he left? Does he know something that maybe, we are assuming might be possible? Well, Arcane Research recently just put out a bit of a warning and said that investors should pay attention to the ongoing financial distress related to the Digital Currency Group, as the outcome could severely impact crypto markets. Now, obviously, if Digital Currency Group does enter bankruptcy, the company could be forced to liquidate its assets. This could force DCG into selling its sizable position in GBTC. Now, just think about that. If these hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin had to get liquidated, and they had to get liquidated on the open market, okay, what would that mean? That's a lot of Bitcoin, especially, hopefully they wouldn't be, stupid about it and they wouldn't do it instantly. Why would they do that, right? But it is something that we need to be concerned about, right? The Mt. Gox Bitcoin is only a fraction of this. So just kind of thinking about that. So that's like the, could crash the market kind of thing. Just going to start out with that. But I do want to talk about what we saw yesterday, because you could clearly see that the bulls are attempting to push this price action up, right? I mean, you guys can see right here, there's clearly this upwards trend. This is a very loose trend line. I'm not trying to do a perfect trend here, but you can see that we are putting in, with the exception of, this guy right here. But if you do kind of take that as the starting point, then yes, we still are putting in higher lows, right? And if we come over here, you can see that we did break through this first trend, and zooming in right here, this was where the Fed came out, the FOMC minutes. We were trying to peak above it right here. We got that rejection, right? If I go back over to here, you see this is where we were, breaking above it. We got that rejection. We fell below it, right? So basically, in a nutshell, it was sort of the news that held us down. But you could see that we are still pushing on this downwards trend. And also, just to point it out, you guys could see right here that if we do break this level, the next level, the target level, is around 17,238, which is where we had this wick down here after this crazy sort of FTX, capitulation. Even though it did go a little bit lower, but this was the area where you did see a lot of buyers coming in. So it's a very important level, which essentially means if Bitcoin, and I mean, basically we're sitting right on the level right here. If we break through this, we're going to head up to around $17,238. Now, we are still consolidating in this bear flag. It is a bear flag, unfortunately, and I've pointed this out multiple times, but I just wonder to myself, it's already happened 4 times. What is the likelihood that this happens a 5th time, right? Generally, markets don't get what everyone is anticipating that they could get. So obviously, you could see that we are still struggling here at this heart line, but if we are to break above it, that does bring us right up here around our target, and then still around that $17,500 level. And the most really significant that I could see right here is also coming up and retesting around 18,200. So there are obviously a lot of resistances for Bitcoin, but the biggest thing that I'm looking at, and why kind of in a way, a lot of people are saying, oh, you have all these different short-term levels. The reason that there's so many levels is because it's been so boring. That's why. So, we kind of wick up, we go sideways for a week, come down, wick back up. Okay, now we have another level, okay? But if you zoom out, forget the daily, forget the short term, forget the 4-hour, looking at the weekly right here, it is unbelievably obvious that we are having right here this long-term trend right here, this yellow line intersecting with this downward sloping trend here, right? The heart line of this parallel channel. And you can see right here that we are attempting, as I'm making this video, to break out of this area. Now you could see, basically you could see the size of these bars, right? So 1, 2, so 3. This would be next week. So next week, yeah, could we dump down to, maybe 16,400 or something like that? Yes, we could. We could have that candle come down here. But after that, there's basically no more room for Bitcoin to move in this chart. So it's going to have to make a decision whether or not it's going to dump to the downside or pump to the upside. And I do believe that we are going to have massive volatility. Now, if you want to look at the moving averages, just like the long-term averages, the weeklies, what are we looking at here? This is what we're looking at. So these moving averages right now, we have this 300, which I've explained to you why the 300 could be significant. And we've even said that the 400 could be the bottom, but I'll save that for another video. You could see that what's basically happening is this 21 exponential, right, is starting to come down here. Now, if you have a look right here, you could see that every single time we break above this, right? You can see we broke above it here, and we stayed above it for a relatively long time, right? Then we broke below it, and look, resistance, right? Came back above it, support, right? Went back below it, resistance, right? What did we have here? Fake out, resistance, right? Came all the way down here. You could say maybe potentially resistance here. We didn't really fully touch it, but ultimately, this is the area that we're looking at, and we are, and what's going to end up happening is this is eventually going to come down here. You see what I'm saying, guys? This is eventually going to come down here. So what's going to end up happening is we're going to run in to this 21 exponential at some point. When specifically, I don't know, maybe just kind of spitballing it, maybe the mid-February, right? But what also could happen is this legacy trend, this purple trend, which is the most important diagonal trend for Bitcoin at this moment. We will end up running into that at some point. So if Bitcoin just, basically went sideways, didn't do anything, that would mean that by May of this year, that's assuming Bitcoin just completely stayed flat until May, we would interject this line. We would have to decide whether or not Bitcoin was going to move to the upside or to the downside. But again, just pointing out right here, this is historically, I mean, you could say this time is different. Maybe it is different. Maybe the 4-year cycle isn't going to hold, but this is the most pivotal moment for Bitcoin. Every single time Bitcoin has ever hit this area, we have never closed below it, and we have always bounced off of it. Every single time. Even down here, look at this COVID wick. We went slightly below it, but we closed above it, right? Same thing here so far. We're technically, as of right now, sitting exactly on the line. And what's even interesting is this red candle back in November. Look at that. Look at that, guys. Boom. Wicked back above it. So guys, if you do want to learn how to trade, make sure that you watch the tutorial popping up above. Use the link below in the description if you want those extra bonuses, $56,200 in bonuses. And I'm telling you guys, it's going to get crazy. It's going to get volatile. And if you are trading, I'm telling you, now is the time to pay attention, because we do have a lot of levels set up at this point, especially to the upside. So it would be a lot easier to, make these trades. Now, if you don't believe me that we're going to have a big move, Charles Edward pointed out the fact that he has this historic 30-day annualized standard deviation historical, I said historical twice, volatility. And you could see that every single time we have these volatilities, getting this low, we do have big moves. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that the move is going to happen instantly, right? But as I said, we could be 1 to 1.5 maybe weeks out. So it may not happen tomorrow, but by the end of next week, I believe we're going to be having a big move. And something that's quite interesting is I just wanted to point out a similarity between these charts. So look at right here. Right here, when we were going sideways, this was the really boring time of the market at the end of, this was 2018, right? And I remember Mike Novogratz specifically was saying that we've bottomed out. A lot of people were saying we've bottomed out. That was it. We were just going sideways. There was no way we were going to fall any lower. We got this volatility falling below this area. And what happened? Massive 50% plummet to the downside, right? So we had this, can you see here? We had this sideways action, boom. And then we consolidated sideways again, a little bit boring. There was a little bit of volatility in there. And then we got the signal again, dipping below here. And what happened? It didn't happen instantly, right? Took a few days, maybe a week or two, and then boom, we just skyrocketed. Now, pay attention to this, right? You get this red, sideways down, green up, right? Let's go. And obviously, it just represents what ended up happening. Red, it wasn't red at the time. It was just the signal. Same thing here, actually. You can see green, boom. So look at this right here, right? So we get the signal, sideways, down. We get a sideways, we get a second signal, boom. Now look at this right here. A little bit smaller, right? But look at this, sideways, we get the signal. We have the drop, sideways, signal again. I mean, you got to admit, on a smaller scale, look at this. Boom, down, sideways, right here. Boom, down, sideways. Very similar. I'm not saying it's going to play out. I'm just saying that there is a lot of negativity. Like Key Young Ju pointed out over at Crypto Quant, talking about this MV-RV ratio. Look at how low they are right now. And he says no one cares about Bitcoin anymore. If you care, you deserve it. Now, I don't think he's being condescending or anything like that. I think he's literally saying you deserve the rewards that come from this, because these are historically the times where you are seeing the lowest sentiment. People walking away, people selling for a loss, people losing interest in Bitcoin, right? And historically speaking, every single time, this has been the best time for accumulation and purchasing. So I will not stop drilling that into you guys' heads. Whatever you want to do, not financial advice. Buy Bitcoin, don't buy Bitcoin. I don't personally care what you do, but I do want you to, consider the possibility of missing out, because I've heard that, fear of missing out is a lot worse than actually losing money, right? If you lose money and other people lose money, no big deal, right? But when you see other people making money and you're sitting on the sidelines, I think that hurts a little bit worse. Maybe it doesn't. Let me know in the comments. But there's been different surveys and research that says that, fear of missing out is worse than losing money. It's watching other people make money while you're not making money, right? So in other words, while everyone is not paying attention to Bitcoin, as he says, when no one cares about Bitcoin, this is probably the time you should start paying attention. So let's talk about this bigger picture though, right? Outside of just the short-term price action, what about the way that the US is going to eventually end up handling this Bitcoin situation? We know that the Fed is willing to put you out of a job. The Fed is willing to cause a recession just to lower inflation, just to make the dollar stronger, That's all they care about. They don't care about anything else, right? Well, first, let's start off with this, and please stick around to the end. I promise it'll be worth your time. In a recent interview, we had the candidate who's running for the presidency of Argentina in 2023, Javier Gerardo Milei, I think is his name. They asked him his thoughts about Bitcoin. And when asked about Bitcoin, he said the first thing we have to understand is that the central bank is a scam. It's a mechanism by which politicians cheat the good people with the inflationary tax. What Bitcoin is representing is a return of money to its original creator, the private sector. Bitcoin has an algorithm that will one day reach a certain amount and there is no more, and it can compete with other currencies. In fact, it can compete with other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum. And what is the good thing? Well, it returns the money to the private sector. But what is the problem? The problem is that the government will not give up legal tender because with legal tender, they can scam you with that inflationary tax. So where does that leave us? This may shock you. So in a joint statement that aims to highlight crypto risks, the Federal Reserve banks nonetheless have made it clear that commercial banks can provide crypto-related services. Quote, banking organizations are neither prohibited nor discouraged from providing banking services to customers of any specific class or type, as permitted by law or regulation. The Federal Reserve Bank said alongside other entities that supervise commercial banks as well as the monetary system. So I think that they are waking up to the fact that they cannot ban Bitcoin. They can try. They can try to ban innovation, but it's just going to move offshore. You're not going to kill it. Pandora's box is open. You might as well let banks offer it. You might as well let customers buy it. And you might as well just try to tax it, right? Because at the end of the day, really isn't that all they care about? And if you just want to look at numbers alone, as terrible and horrible as a year that 2022 was, you can see right here, the number of retailers who are willing to accept cryptocurrency payments continues to rise at a steady increase in the volume of crypto purchases made online in the e-commerce sector. The research indicates that in 2022, and by the way, this report was done by CoinGate specifically, CoinGate, just this one company alone, received 927,294 crypto payments, which is around 2.7 times higher than the annual average and represents a 63% increase from 2021. So just to put this in explain it like a 5-year-old terms, the figure is equivalent to CoinGate processing one paid cryptocurrency order every 34 seconds. So in 2022, just this one company alone was processing one cryptocurrency transaction every 34 seconds. That's incredible, guys. And you can see that the number is continuing to the upside. So that is something that I just wanted to point out. Now, here's the big op-ed that I wanted to end on. And this is an article by Matthew Smith. Now, just who is this guy? Well, he is an operations officer for the United States Air Force and an assistant professor of aerospace studies at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And it asked the question, is Bitcoin a national security opportunity or a national security threat? Obviously, this is a little bit long. I've highlighted the key parts. Countries, first of all, just getting it right out, he says, countries will not ban Bitcoin. Instead, eventually, they will aggressively compete for it, and those with larger fractions of 21 million will have greater strategic and economic primacy than their geopolitical competitors. So there's this thing called the National Security Strategy, right? It's a periodic document designed to communicate the vision of the executive branch and serve as the roadmap for the U.S. that helps Congress carry out the directions laid out, excuse me, guys, by the highest office in the land. So part of the most recent document, the NSS, under the Trade and Economic section states that the U.S. will explore the merits and responsibly lead developments of digital assets, including a digital dollar. That's for another day. We know CBDCs are coming, but despite being labeled, they go on, magic internet money and rat poison over the last decade, the rise of Bitcoin secured its credibility and since then has gradually made its way into committees and boardrooms consisting of members holding the highest positions of influence. It can no longer be ignored. The nation currently runs a $31 trillion deficit with no signs of slowing down. There are only two ways a deficit of that magnitude can ever be paid: either by default through a monetary reset, or, that's right, guys, turn on the money printer and get that inflation going again, right? So what did we do in 1971? Well, in 1971, instead of defaulting on its own financial obligations, the US changed the economic policy entirely. It ended the Bretton Woods era and removed gold from being tied to the US dollar. So if history is any future indicator of what will occur at the end of the next financial cycle, the US will likely explore an alternative economic policy as alluded to in the recent NSS document. So what does this mean for Bitcoin, right? That's why you've all come to the end of the video. That's why you're all here. Slap a like if you made it this far, guys. By the way, just side note, not to get off topic here, but the YouTube algorithm and crypto videos, it's not really a hot topic right now. So just, comment below, drop a like, share this video with a friend. It helps to keep it going so that I can keep sharing all this with you guys because, I put a lot of effort into these videos and I'm very happy when people actually see them. So getting back to Bitcoin, thank you. I love you guys. You're awesome. Bitcoin fits the criteria that the NSS details. Bitcoin is the hardest form of money and provides the highest standards of protection to individuals. It is the most stable digital asset as it continues to release a new block every 10 minutes and is the most inclusive monetary protocol as it allows not just individuals with social security numbers and 2 forms of government issued IDs to access its benefits, but its open source protocol grants protection and services to everyone, including the 1.4 billion unbanked people across the world, while the Lightning Network promotes the efficient transactions, arguably the most important dimension of a globalized economy. Its built-in deflationary nature and absolute scarcity features ensure that 100% of the work and value created by people is enjoyed and never diminished through monetary debasement. Lastly, Bitcoin's enormous defense system discourages bad actors as the cost of attack has become too great and thus forces peaceful and mutually beneficial agreements. In every sense, the Bitcoin protocol perfectly aligns with the core value of the United States and its national security strategy. Contrary to what some senior officials claim, Bitcoin does not generate a national security risk. Instead, ignoring the Bitcoin network would significantly impede the U.S.'s ability to pay its national debt, outmaneuver its geopolitical competitors, and weaken the country's economic instrument of power, which aims to leverage the country's wealth to influence the behaviors of others. Thus, further delaying Bitcoin adoption is the national security risk. And on that note, my friends, I'm going to end this video. I think this was an amazing article put out by a former operations officer for the United States Air Force. Thank you so much, Matthew Smith. I really appreciate this. Great take. Let me know what you guys think about that. It would be a risk not to embrace Bitcoin. And I firmly believe this, guys. I believe this is the next financial revolution. And just ending again on this chart, we are in a giant falling wedge. Google a falling wedge right now. Google falling wedge pattern. Go ahead. I'll wait. Well, we don't have time for that. Basically, Bitcoin is in actually a monumental, mega, giant, super, crazy, colossal, bullish pattern. And when we do eventually break out of this, we don't know when that will be, we are going to probably go on a massive, massive, massive run. So being able to accumulate Bitcoin at these levels is honestly a blessing. I never thought we would even see these levels again, truthfully. I mean, you guys know that. I mean, I'll be straight up. I mean, who thought we were going to fall below the previous all-time high? Obviously, who thought everything was going to end up happening the way that it did, right? With, the Fed and inflation and rates, we didn't really know. And we had all these bad actors, FTX, the contagion with, Celsius. It was just been a very crazy year. But that being said, guys, I remain extremely optimistic, extremely bullish on Bitcoin. I highly suggest you should too. And if you guys are interested in learning how to make money in bull markets or bear markets, I do suggest that you check out the tutorial again, popping up above once again. Take advantage of those bonuses. The exchange that I'm using is BitGet. Few people have reached out to me and asked about, there's a disclaimer when you sign up. If you've been around crypto long enough, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I can't say what to do, but I just, I've heard some people use VPNs. I don't know. I can't suggest it. I don't know much about that. But if you are interested, BitGet is a very popular exchange. They have over 20 Bitcoin daily withdrawals, no KYC, very, very, very high liquidity. and you can practice on their demo accounts, and you can also get an extra $18,000. So why you wouldn't take advantage of that in a bear market, I have no idea, but make sure you guys use the link below in the description if you want, or if you just want to go to bitget.com. When you sign up, put in the code NYNL. That's my personal code, and you guys will get those bonuses, once you deposit and do the trades, etc. So that is it for me. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. You guys rock. You're the reason that I make these videos. Hope you guys are getting excited. The boring times are about to come to an end soon, so don't get too comfortable. Until next time, stay crypto, and of course, peace out.